One of the UK's largest petrochemical plants at Grangemouth in Scotland was saved from closure last week after a bitter dispute between its owner, INEOS, the multinational chemicals company, and the workforce. Joining me today is Len McCluskey, one of the men at the centre of that dispute and General Secretary of Unite, Britain's largest trade union. Mr McCluskey, your union had to accept some pretty difficult changes to pay and pensions to save this plant. Did the union miscalculate in its handling of the dispute?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure that people fully understand the role of a trade union. We tend to be a reactive organisation. There's a debate often takes place within the union as to whether we should be more proactive, and that debate continues. But what happened in Grangemouth was simply a reaction by our membership to given events. So when you say miscalculate, I think in all honesty I'd have to say no, there wasn't a miscalculation. It was a series of events that took place which with the benefit of hindsight, of course, could have been handled differently if the company had have come to us much earlier and sat down and wanted to discuss a survival plan. We do that with thousands of companies all over the UK, and we would have engaged in that survival plan because, as we've seen, the priority for our members was to keep the plant open.
And what do you say to the allegations that the union used bullying tactics, sending up to 20 people to demonstrate outside the homes of executives, allegedly frightening their children?
This is part of our so-called leverage strategy, and nobody frightened children. I mean, this is just normal tabloid hysteria from the right-wing press. This is protest, that's all it is. It's the oldest form of democracy, whereby if a company is engaged in what we believe is an unfair attack on workers and their families and their communities, then the idea that faceless directors can then disappear to their leafy suburbs and get away with that type of action is something that we think is wrong. So people protest. It's a small part of leverage. Our leverage strategy is more to do with bringing to the attention of suppliers and the supply chain and customers the actions of an employer if we believe that employer is behaving unfairly.
Do you fear now that other employers will sense weakness on the union's part and start to demand, take a tougher line with you in negotiations?
Well, if they do, they'll be making a terrible mistake. The truth is that employers who don't want to listen to their workforce, and let's precisely understand what a union is. A union isn't Len McCluskey. Len McCluskey didn't wake up one morning and decide to have a dispute with INEOS. A union is the workforce who create the wealth in that company coming together voluntarily to have a collective voice. Now, we deal with thousands, 25,000 different employers is what Unite deals with. The vast majority of them we deal with in a positive fashion, and we deal with in a constructive way, and we bring added value, and they themselves would say that. And so where we have companies who don't want to listen to their workforce, well, they will always try to see if they can exploit weaknesses. But I don't think what's happened at Grangemouth will give a green light to anybody. If they do, if they think that we are cowed in any shape or form, then they'd be sadly mistaken.
Will it change your strategy at all? Will you be more cautious in future about the circumstances in which strikes and industrial action are called?
We're always cautious. I've never yet met, I know the media would project me as being strike happy. I've been involved in lots of strikes and disputes in my time, but I've never yet a worker who liked being on strike. Workers don't like taking strike action. It's always the so-called last card in the pack. And it's always taken on the basis that the workforce don't believe that their employer is listening to them in a fair and open manner. So it's not a question of will we be more cautious. We are always cautious before that type of action is taken, and what's happened at Grangemouth won't change that.
Mr McCluskey, thank you very much.